Hey Nevin, just a few minutes.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Hi, sorry about that.
That's
My
okay.
WhatsApp system.
That's okay. Don't worry. Should we start?
Yeah. Is it? Like I have bad internet. Are you saying something I can't hear? Yeah, now I can. Now I can. Oh, what do I do about it? Is it automatic? Is it better now? Hi, just connect to my hotspot. Will that be better? Should I try doing that? Yeah. Hi. That's good. Yeah, yeah. Cool.
Probably understand connecting the beautiful city of Leicester with the beautiful state of Kerala, because I can't say where Nevin is, because no matter where he is in Kerala, it's going to be beautiful. So we've had a few difficulties, but we're here, and you might not see Nevin in his full glory, but it's better than not seeing him at all. So hello, Nevin. Good afternoon to you. How are you, my friend?
Good, good, good. Good afternoon to you as well. Good morning, is it? Yeah, good morning to you.
Yes, good morning. I'm not going to tell you what it's looked like, because you'll be hearing the same thing from me for the next 5 6 months. But it'd be good to hear what it's looked like after your outside your window.
It was bright and sunny, and I read out, had like a good brunch with an old college mate. It was a good Sunday so far.
Brilliant. And it's going to be a busy Sunday for you, because straight after this podcast, we've both got to.
So,
Well, I'm actually keeping an eye on the cricket as well. That's going well so far. And it's good to see people in stadiums. And they've been showing
yeah,
signs of people in Sydney outside the Opera House and what have you. And for me, living in England in the middle of a second lockdown, we're going to go into a third lockdown in the 16th when this ends. Sorry, not on the 16th, on the 2nd. We're still going to be in Tier 3 in Leicester. It's
yeah,
unusual to see people enjoying themselves, but it's good to see as well.
yeah.
And it was good to
Yeah,
see
I'm a
the.
big fan of the cricket as well, and we've got an ISL double header plus London Derby tonight. So it's a yeah, like you said, it's a packed Sunday.
Well, especially for you, because a couple of your teams are playing, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of a weekend you have. It could be quite mixed, but we'll see how it pans out, and we'll talk about some of the games coming up today in a bit. But first, I want to start off with obviously the big news this week and the sad news this week of the death of Diego Maradona. And I know everybody's been tweeting about it quite rightly. A lot of media coverage. I don't know if you want to share your thoughts. I know you put out a tweet saying you're finding it difficult to put some words together around that. But you've had a few days. What are your thoughts on the sad loss of a lot of people are saying the greatest footballer ever.
And I'm one of those I think I belong there. I've not necessarily seen Maradona play. I mean, I wasn't really. I was alive, but I don't remember even the '94 World Cup, which is his last World Cup. So, for me, if you have to categorize my generation of football, it's just more of Ronaldo from Brazil, Ronaldinho, Kaká. These are the players we idolized as kids. So, but like Maradona was always Maradona because my dad used to talk about it. My uncle, my elder brother, everybody is like Maradona, and everybody wanted to be Maradona when they were playing as kids. Like my brother, he keeps saying that everybody wants to be Maradona. I mean, they say they are, they're Maradona. So his impact was way larger. Like he's beyond football. He's larger than life sort of a player. And I know it's a very, very mean thing to say, and I'm sorry if I come across as insensitive, but like a friend of mine said, in some sense, Maradona had to go early. Like that's how he always lived his life. I mean, if he had just died when he was say 105, people wouldn't have really, that wouldn't be a Maradona way. He had to live his life, fully, and then, just disappear one day and surprise the entire world. So in some sense, if you look at it from a emotionless, just a very poetic point of view, he lived his life, and he lived his life beyond what a footballer can imagine. And yes, there were controversies, but he came to inaugurate a jewelry in Kerala, and almost half of Kerala was there to see him. That's the kind of appeal that he has here in Maradona. Everybody, every Argentina fan I know here has been influenced by Maradona, if not directly, their parents, their uncle, somebody would have, converted them into an Argentina fan because of Maradona, not Messi. Yes, I mean, there is the Messi generation out there, but they were already supporting Argentina because of this one person. And like I think Gary Lineker said, it was a very nice talk that he gave, but he said, or say Rio Ferdinand was saying, he was doing it in a pitch that wasn't meant to be played football. It's just slipping and sliding and with a ball that is way heavier than what it is today. In challenges about you could challenge up to the hip and then get away with probably a yellow card. And he played football at that time, so he was sort of like 15 years ahead of what his peers would do. Okay, the Messi is doing it, Ronaldo is doing it, a lot of players are doing it right now, but what he did, when he did, for places he did, he didn't go to win in Barcelona. He won in Napoli. Now that's this, he didn't win with the greatest Argentina side with great players around him. He single-handedly took, and that's what I think defined Maradona as a player. He was a captain. He was a leader. He was a charisma, an enigma. So many things, so many descriptions we can use to talk about him. But I'm sure you know better. I'm sure you followed him. I would like to see. I would like to hear what you think about Maradona.
Well, I think he epitomizes when people say it's a one-man team, and he truly was that person who led, like you said, Argentina to the '86 World Cup. That was all down to him. And I mean, we saw a lot of clips this week of obviously the goals against England, and they highlighted the handball goal. I still think, any player in this situation in a World Cup game is not going to say, oh no, that hit my hand. So, but then straight after, that second goal that everybody talks about is one of the greatest goals in the World Cup. And I do remember seeing him, so I'm showing my age here, and I still remember seeing, him play, and quite rightly, the pitches were not carpets, and the punishment he took, you can see how his body, alright, there was other aspects to his life, but you can see how physically his body took a beating, a real beating, because he was just far away, a much better player, quick thinker. We know his ball skills were far superior to any defensive midfielder or a defender. And there was a picture I saw the other day, and that just sums him up. There was, I think, about 4 or 5 Belgian players on him. Can you imagine 4 or 5 players on one player at the moment? Even now, Messi, they double up, sometimes triple up. And you mentioned the fact that he was such a genius that he had to die early. And what is it about these geniuses? And they are geniuses because there's quite a few examples during that time. And football has been sanitized recently, but well, not recently, last 15-20 years, because in England, we've got the example of George Best from Northern Ireland, Gascoigne, who had the potential to be, he was a world-class player, but even go further, but the demons caught up with him. What is it about these geniuses that they lead such a full life on and off? Is that what makes them geniuses? Or is it the lack of something in their character that they can't? They're too nice. They say yes to everything, and then that is sometimes where they end up in trouble. Because I've seen the documentary during lockdown of Maradona and the issues he had at Barcelona, and how he went to Napoli, and that's when things outside his life started to change. But the way he transformed Napoli, and there's talks of it quite rightly, the stadium being renamed from the Sao Paulo to the Maradona Stadium. But for a player in that era where there was no internet, there was no social media, to get that sort of, I mean, you mentioned the fact when he came to Kerala, and I'm sure TV was there, but not to the extent it is now. To get that sort of following in Kerala, which is a passionate football state, let's not, forget that. But also when he went to Kolkata, it just shows. But what is it about these geniuses that they have these sort of lives?
It's sad that we can't somehow protect our geniuses. I feel it's partly our responsibility as well. We put so much on them. There's so much pressure. We don't give them. I especially talking about the Tasif Kapadia documentary that you were just talking about. You could see that he had no personal life. He could not walk out after a point. People could surround him. He could not be himself. And like a lot of people say in that documentary as well, Diego the man was very pure. But Maradona, became a demon after a while, simply because of the kind of influence that were around him. And I think it's partly our responsibility that I remember there's a good speech by the author of Eat, Pray, Love. It's a TED talk, Liz Gilbert, and she talks about how, sometimes this whole creative genius, it's nice to just imagine as an outside entity possessing you for a while, and it's not you. Because if you assume that it's you, then that's too much power on you, too much responsibility on you, too much like she talks about how she's written Eat, Pray, Love. It's become a freakish success, and now her entire life is scary because can she repeat that magic? Can she sustain that? And that's a lot of pressure you put on these creative people. And I think that's what happened to a Maradona. You don't allow them to live a normal life once they've achieved what they've gone on to achieve, and then they need some kind of external release, and some go, like alcoholism has been a big problem for football for generations. And similarly, they all take different routes to, I think it's partly our fault. We put so much on them. We call them God. Look at the number of articles written about Maradona, which address him as God.
Well, there's an actual church in Argentina, the Church of Maradona.
Exactly. So I think we put a lot of responsibility on people, and we just don't let them become normal humans once they've achieved something. And I think you, me, everybody is at fault here, but that's how the system is. And I hope, and I really hope that we can change as human beings and let people be creative geniuses and also have a good life and a normal life beyond it. But with social media, I'm finding it even more difficult right now.
Yeah, social media is not, it has its good and a lot of bad points. But I was just wondering, for parents, and you look at the clean cut Ronaldo, there's nobody more clean cut than him in terms of his lifestyle, and it's all about football for him. And outside, you don't hear anything, much now, especially around any alcohol he doesn't drink or anything else. And Messi is such a gentleman by all accounts. You can tell what an incredible figure he is. But do you think parents will say, be like Maradona, or do you think they'll say be like Messi? Forget about people growing up in the Messi and Ronaldo era, but will that side, his personal side, affect how people look back? And they'll have mixed views. Obviously, in England, we've got the handball goal, hand of God goal, that taints slightly what people's thoughts are of Maradona. But do you think outside England, the other aspect of his life is overshadowing?
I think everybody wants it. I mean, considering the genius that he is, I think everybody would want their kids to be a Maradona. And when they say it, they're not saying you become an alcoholic or get into drugs or anything. They're not implying that. I think when we talk about Maradona, we're just talking about somebody. I think it was Gary Lineker who said he's not seen a player where the chemistry between the ball was so good. It was almost like the ball stuck to him. The way he understood football was beyond comprehension for a normal human being. And I think everybody would want their kid to be, if they're interested in football. Which is still very new for our country. I don't think I'm sure our parents don't even say become a Messi or Ronaldo. So that's that's a different debate, a different topic to discuss on another day. But I don't think that taints him in any way. And I think Maradona, I think we just let him be, right? Like regardless of all the controversies that surrounded Maradona, regardless of little gimmicks on in the stadiums, little fun things, him turning up for an interview and not saying a word. We always loved him. We couldn't hate on Maradona. We just like, oh my god, we always like, oh my god, like what a genius, and we just let it be, right? We just like let him be. Yeah, I think, and like, especially when you talk about say places like Kerala, places like West Bengal, there is also a lot of political history that sort of goes in sync with what Maradona did, and he's also very openly left person. Like his politics was very clear. Apparently, he spoke to the Pope about why don't you sell the gold inside the church and help the kids if you really care about the kids, and that's the kind of person he was, right? So I think the myth and the legend of Maradona will always live, and I think he's influenced far too many generations to just be forgotten by when we have kids. I don't think we are forgetting Maradona. So
yeah, and obviously he had very close links to Cuba and Fidel and the government there, and there was no secret about his leanings towards a more socialist and fair society, and where his views were. But just looking, just continuing and taking your views on Maradona for a little bit before we move on to current events. But I did feel sorry for him because, I mean, you could see when he became manager and the issues he was having still, that he never, from the point he joined Napoli to probably last week, he never had that network of support, and that is quite sad and shocking that because he's been close to death a few times before, but he never seems to get that support to get him on the right, well, I say right track in speed marks, but it was sad to see at the end when he became managers of these small clubs. For a man of his stature, of his standing and his reputation, that was quite sad.
I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, obviously there's a lobby. There's always jealousy. I mean, this is the truth of life. You face it in your career. I face it in my career. We all go through it. And when it's somebody like Maradona, the jealousy is even more. I think part like England obsessing about the hand of God is also one clear example of a country. Always looking down on South Americans, and I have problems so many times with what people say when Suarez was playing for Liverpool. They kept haunting him, just kept villainizing him. He was an astounding player, one of the best players I've seen in the Premier League for Liverpool. But the commentators would, oh, look at him play, acting, look, he's a cheat, he's this, he's that. So, that apart, like I don't want to get into the details of the politics of it. But of course, he's faced his challenges. I also think when you're as brilliant as Maradona, you'll struggle to be a coach because you're expecting your players to be at least 1/10 of your standards. I think your expectation is that the player understands. The player naturally understands what to do with it, and which is strange for a player who never really defied, stuck to a particular position. I know you always vote the number 10 position, and I remember 2-3 lines distinctly from the Asif Kawadia documentary about the number 10 position itself and what it means and what it defines. But like my brother was telling this, he was also pretty young, so he asked uncle, like, what position does Maradona play so that he can go to the football field? And my uncle said Maradona has no position.
No.
Maradona has no position. He gets the ball and he does what he wants.
He could have worn the number 1 shirt and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Exactly. So I think he's also like you see good players struggle, right? Thierry Henry struggles as a coach. He's not really proven to be a good coach so far, at least. And I think that's because Thierry Henry, what he did on the pitch is impossible for 99.9% of footballers across the world. And Tony Adams, you all thought, big captain for Arsenal. We all thought, he's going to become a successful coach. He never had like a good stint as a coach. So I think I don't think it's fair for us to say a good player should naturally become a good coach. And it's very likely that Maradona was a very bad coach, that, because he was just expecting his footballers just go do your thing. That's how football's played. again, a lot of assumptions here. I have not sat in the dressing room. Maybe he was a tactically brilliant man, and players just didn't understand what Maradona. But like, your assumption is that that's not. Maradona probably just went and said, why don't you go out and play, enjoy football, and win matches.
Yeah.
So it could be that as well. That could have led to the downfall of it. Obviously, a lot of external pressure. I don't think he was a man who could have been easily influenced. So even if say a UEFA, a FIFA, all of them approached him with a certain thing, I'm sure he would have just rejected it. He's like, no, I don't want to get into the politics of it, or I don't want to stick to any norms or rules that he put on me. So he lived his life, and I think we need to just look back and say, hey, what a player, what a gifted man. And I think we just need. I don't think it's fair for us to be critical, saying, oh, he should have probably done that, he should have got this help and all. Let the man be, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And he lived the life he wanted to and the way he wanted to, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I love the fact that he was so passionate as a supporter. When you saw him at Argentina games or at Boca Juniors games, you can see he was living the life of we do as supporters or fans of our clubs, and that was, you don't often see that much passion from ex-players, former players, even with a tenth of the class and talent that Maradona had. He was incredibly proud of the teams he supported and played for and loved, and that was really great to see. This is a by-the-by question, but somebody did say the other day, and I said you can't judge, but when you talk about the geniuses, there's four that spring to mind, which is Pele, Maradona, and currently we have Messi and Ronaldo. And from what you're saying, and I think I have to agree with you, because obviously I didn't see Pele, believe it or not, I'm not that old, but he played under circumstances that I think Messi and Ronaldo would struggle with. But each generation has to adapt to what they've got. But out of them four, I think, I don't know if you agree, but Maradona is number one for me.
For me as well, definitely, because he is a charisma. I think all of the others mentioned are like exceptional footballers, but like I think Maradona, what he did on the pitch and off the pitch and everything, he brought to football is just like number one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. A proper one-man team, and he's going to improve by a long way the team in heaven by a long stretch, no doubt about that. So that's...
I can imagine heaven, where Johan Cruyff is already, waiting for him to just join the team.
That's a incredible 11 they have up there that can play in any era. But a sad loss. But like you said, we've been close to this loss a few times. But when it did happen, it was still a shock when I picked up the social media. And he'll never be forgotten. He's one of those. But moving on to more... recent happenings, and in the past week of the Indian Super League, and a couple of things I just want to mention. That this has been, I said it a few weeks and I'm not going to say anymore, but my first time of watching regular Indian football, and I really enjoyed the game last Sunday, Goa versus BFC, because the Saturday I found the standard quite disappointing, shall I say. And what I've seen is, and you can probably tell me if this is normal, but in terms of the passing accuracy, whether it's decision making of certain players, the standard, or am I expecting too much, or is this something that's improving? But it doesn't seem to be. The game management doesn't seem to be there, and the passing accuracy doesn't seem to be there with our players. You can see the difference between the international foreign players and our players, most of them, because the majority are not top class internationals, even if they play for India. But that was my few takeaways from watching quite a few games this week.
It is true.
The standard is very variable in terms of, like I said, I really enjoyed the Goa game against BFC, but then I saw my boys, Orisha, and I have to say I was really disappointed. Ron probably won't like me saying it so bluntly. He was, saying it was first game, and I'm hoping for a change today. But what's your thoughts on what I've said in the past week in terms of the games?
Absolutely. I mean, We've been saying this forever as well. In fact, I remember saying this to you in last year. I've sort of noticed that the Indians take the safer route when foreigners are around. And like, this is a very controversial view, but like when there are like 5 foreigners around, when there's a risky pass, they instead pass it to the foreigner.
Yeah.
And that really doesn't help our football, because you want, footballers to make that risky pass, even if it's like a 60-40, go for it, give it a shot, because that through ball can really open up defenses, make those, defense splitting passes. Even the likes of Sahal in the first match, you kept, seeing him turn back and look for the easy option and not, play his customary, through balls and all that. So obviously, whatever you said is true. And only very few players have really picked up and, stepped up to the challenge. You see Anirudh Thapa now, he is a transformed player. He's really thrived playing with foreigners, and he's taken up that responsibility. He can play anywhere in the central midfield as a CAM, as a number 10. He can play as a pivot. He's a very versatile midfielder. Brandon Fernandes, for example, can play in the wing, can play in the center. And only very few players have really taken up. And I think I'm sure you can notice this as well, and this is what you wanted to say. More than say the passing accuracy in terms of their percentage as well, because they do a lot of back passes and side passes, which obviously improves the percentage. What I don't see them is making really important passes, like, and that really that's partly down to the fact that they don't hold the ball enough. There seems to be like that tension. Foreigners can, hold a ball for at least another 2 seconds, another 1 second, 0.5 of a second. That really makes a difference. The moment there's a ball on the Indian, it's almost like he's turning. What options do I have? What options do I have? Or should I just run?
Or just kick it.
That wide vision of, really, calm down. I have my ability. If there's someone charging, I can just, fake or like just dribble past him and then open up that space. You don't have to, hit a pass first time. And that's partly why the percentage is also, really a little poor, because they're trying, first time passes. They're trying to, not be, dispossessed. So rather, try to get the ball away. So I want Indians to be more brave, and that can only happen with coaches trusting them, playing them in important positions, and, just say, it's okay if you lose the ball, but I still want you to try to, hold on to the ball, because that will really improve the team. You see, the likes of Lenny Rodriguez, for example, FC Goa, he's a vastly improved player because Sergio Lobera trusted. He plays in a very, almost like a register role, gets a ball from defenders, turns, looks for people. And I want more Indians to be more comfortable that way. I really am hoping that Lobera can develop both Rainier and Borges that way, because there are like the two good midfielders who can really improve on the ball, especially. And similarly, I think it's a process. Also, let's give it to them that they've had very little preseason, and it really takes time to, really, kickstart the, engine. But generally, even the likes of Udanta, Jackie Chan, I've been really disappointed with these players. They're just like hitting those crosses where nobody is there. Prashant for Kerala Blasters. I mean, when a team is doing really well, you would want them to, especially these wing position was something that we always thought Indians were good at. Like, at least, we could run in the wing position, put in those dribbles, put in those crosses. But Len for Goa, he's shown glimpses, but he's not been good enough. But so really want the Indian wingers and attackers to really step up their game. They can't just say, oh no, we're not being played in the striker position. You need to tell the coach that you deserve to be played in the right position. Earn your right. Don't just, because you've not shown anything where, the coach will say, okay, why don't I, look at Manveer, for example. He's got a very good goal. Now that's going to bring some trust. And that's the process, go there, fight hard, earn that position. And I think it's a process. I don't know. Some people say it's better to play with 5 foreigners because that really improves the football as such and the vision improves and all. But sometimes I think it's the opposite, especially last year with FC Goa when they were playing with like 3 foreigners. The likes of Brandon were like really taking charge and really commanding. And so yeah, it's a complicated. I thought Odisha's case was the same last time around. They were, the Indian core was running the show last time around. So more, extravagant football, attacking relentlessly. Last time in the first match of the season, I thought they were a little confused with their identity. What did they want to do? They wanted
it
to
seemed the same this week.
Yeah, and like uh, pass the ball to Onwu and see what happens. That seemed to be the strategy. And Onwu also was like getting the ball in like midfield positions where he can't like turn and hit it goal. So early days again. I don't want to like.
Yeah, it
I
is
don't want to
early
jump.
days, but just a few. And like you said, there was hardly a pre-season, so we need to give the players a bit of time. But you mentioned two
Yeah.
players, and they stood out for me as well. Brandon, when he came on last week, changed the game, and Tapa, I thought, against in the JFC game, stood out for me. But it was just a general, thoughts that the players were a little bit disappointing in terms of, you say back passes, but even they were getting some of the easy passes wrong. Seemed to be hoofing the ball rather than taking a second or two to see what options were there. And then you mentioned the wingers. The crossing has been so poor, but we'll see if that improves. Or I'm being really harsh, having being used to different brand of football, because I compare it to whether it's Premier League, Championship, or the lower divisions.
No, I just want to like interrupt there, and this is what the reality is. A lot of people don't talk about. A lot of people say, "Oh, why are you watching Premier League and not watching Indian Super League?" If I was just a fan and I'm just watching TV for consumption and just like entertainment, I will watch Premier League because it's fast, it's well produced, it's entertaining, and you can't really blame people for not watching ISL as well. I understand the need for us to support, but asking a normal person who's just using the weekend just swap through channels and watch a little bit of football while talking to friends and all, they probably want to watch Premier League, and that's the reality of it. And things will only improve once our football improves. It's a process that I know for football to improve, we need to watch it. So it's all hand in hand, and it's sometimes unfair. I see a lot of posts on Twitter and saying, "Oh, you watch Premier League, you watch Liverpool, but you don't watch Indian football. You're plastic and all that." Let's be very realistic about it. It's not, Jurgen Klopp football is drastically different from what we're seeing here in India.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Klopp later because he had an interesting interview yesterday.
I had a big discussion about that in a WhatsApp group as well. We'll get to that.
Just going back to the week that's just happened, I have to say I've been really impressed with the Northeast United coach. I think he comes across really well.
Absolutely.
He seems to have a plan, and you can see the start they've had. It's pretty decent compared to my boys for a start. Although we've only played one game, but the type of football he's playing and the players he's got. Let's face it, they're not the biggest names even in Indian football, but I like the way they're playing. 80k Mohun Bagan. I know I mentioned it last week, and you quite rightly said, this is the way they play. But they're not helping the cause of entertainment, are they?
Absolutely, and they don't care about it. They're all about winning, and well, you can't blame them, right? They've got the recent two matches look really solid in defense, and I think sort of showed Kerala Blasters side as well, exposed in some sense, because there was a sense of optimism last time around after the first match, because people thought, oh, Kerala was dominating, giving it a go against champions 80k side. But here was East Bengal, who is not at all fancied this season because of the very little pre-season time they've had with all those changes and all. And they were also at a lot of, if you look at the possession stats, if you look at where they had the position on, you would think that East Bengal had a good game and probably were unlucky to lose the match. But that's how 80k is. That's like Antonio Conte's Chelsea, for example. Just sit back, counter, goal, done. So this is how 80k is going to play all season. Don't be surprised by it at all.
Yeah, and it was reflected in the game against the biggest game that the hype's been there all week, or since the fixtures came out against. I think I have to get this one right as well, because like I say 80k Mohun Bagan, I have to say Sri Cement's East Bengal now. But I did enjoy that game. I think it was good to. There was some good football. But I was thinking that East Bengal might struggle a bit more, but they did. But then again, it's the way 80k Mohun Bagan play, where they give you a lot of space and a lot of time, so that might be, like you said, a little bit deceiving of the reality. But in terms of the first game, I don't know what the reaction has been back home with East Bengal fans. I know they had big stars on the fan walls as well during the game, and big interviews before the start. But how did that game go in terms of social media and the reaction?
I'm frankly surprised. I think the East Bengal fans were very positive about it. I didn't see a lot of people losing there. They were realistic about their side stances. We were talking about an ATK Mohan Bagan side. I know it's a new side on paper, but it's pretty much the ATK side that won the league last time around. So, and it's the same coach as well. So it's a well-drilled side, knows what to do. They've upgraded with a couple of good players like say Manveer Singh came in and scored a goal. Roy Krishna is like arguably the best striker in the league. So you give him one chance, you give him two chances, he's going to score a goal. So, yeah, I think East Bengal fans were quite, okay about it. And generally, I think the feeling was that um, I think it was well received. There was a lot of hype before the match as well. Kolkata Derby, first ISL Kolkata Derby. It's almost like, the biggest match had come to the right place finally. Yeah, I think good for football. Good. I mean, I did come across a very interesting stat though. Somebody had tweeted saying it's very interesting that when there's a Kolkata derby, there's a lot of Kolkata football viewers, but they don't necessarily tune up for their other matches. So it's almost like they watch the derby, but they don't necessarily watch the other matches of say East Bengal or ATK Mohan Bagan. So that's an interesting thing. We just sort of assume that Kolkata fans are always glued to the TV watching football, but not necessarily so.
Yeah. One thing, obviously, is it's an obvious statement to make, but having 100,000 plus people at the Salt Lake Stadium would have made a difference to the atmosphere and maybe maybe the result. You don't know how players react, but it's certainly been noticeable, and people have said that with no crowds in the Premier League, some of the younger players are getting a lot more confidence because they're not getting the supporters on their back when they make a mistake, or even the bigger names. They're playing a little bit more freely. Are you noticing that in the ISL, although it's only been a couple of games?
Yeah, I think it's just too early to notice, and also we don't see these players throughout the year, like say Premier League, right? So we don't know how they perform otherwise as well, because a lot of players turn up one way for one season, then they get like an 8 month off, and then they turn up as a completely different player next season around in a good and bad way. So yeah, too early to see really make any conclusion about how say Sahal is going to perform, or how somebody. And like you said, the pressure is not there from the fans. There's the other side of it as well, right? Some people really thrive in that pressure. Some people really love the noise behind them, and they really put their heart out when there is that fans supporting them. So I think it's both way around, and nothing noticeable so far. I mean, the regular performers have performed, and the newcomers have sort of I was for Kerala Blasters, I thought Rohit played a good match in the midfield. I was pleasantly surprised to see him. He wasn't a favorite to start for me, but he ran the show quite well in the centre midfield. And, players like that, I think considering the difficulty of the season, the number of substitutes available, you might see occasional performances like Deepak Tangri starting for Chennai in last time around when we were expecting Edwin to start. So you might see a couple of surprises here and there. Yeah.
And in terms of your local team, the Blasters losing a 2-goal lead, it was literally a game of two halves. What's been the reaction there after a couple of games? I mean, it's not been the worst start. I know disappointing to lose a 2-goal start, but you can see the signs of a good team there.
Of course, yeah. I mean, there is definitely potential there. I think Kibu is still, working out how to, get the best 11. I think that will be the biggest challenge. Before the season, a lot of people thought Sergio Sudoncha is probably the foreigner who is going to sit out most, but he's clearly been given a big role, and he's the captain of the side and even scored a goal as well. Everybody's still waiting for Rahul to be fully fit, and hopefully to see Sahal more in action. But it's clear that the team management has given the coach the full backing. Like, if you want to drop him. The ultimate goal is to win as many football matches as possible. There was a lot of voices raised before the match when there was no Kerala player starting for Kerala Blasters. Everybody's like, no, I call this Kerala Blasters if nobody's going to promote our football, which I think is a little unfair. the players also have to be enough quality, start. So it's partly their fault as well. You have to really perform well to be part of an ISL side. But yeah, generally, I think at least the circles that I am part of have been quite okay. They're like, okay, we understand it's a team in a transition. It's going to take some time, and they've been patient so far.
Yeah, and it is early days. I think you need to get through a third of the season before you start seeing how...
And against Northeast, I think it's important to acknowledge they were good.
Yeah.
Rather than just Kerala Blasters faltered or anything.
Yeah.
Gerard Knows seemed to be like a superb manager. He changed things around. He understood how Kerala had lined up with a lot of crossing ability, and they were really attacking the side through the width. So he introduced the likes of Brito, and I think that really changed the match. He started the press in the wide areas as well. And he was a quick thing. He was not he was not waiting till the 80th minute to act. So
yeah,
I think it's
yeah, he's really adapted to Indian football very, very quickly, and he seems to have got a good unit there, like I said earlier. So that the only player that I wanted to talk about and that I've been impressed with so far has been Lafondre at Mumbai. I think he's had a really good couple of games. He seems to be on it. Seems to be a striker that's going to score a few goals if he's allowed to play down the centre. Your thoughts on any of the internationals that so far stood out for you?
I quite like Angulo of FC Goa as well. He was making a lot of good runs and seems to be the perfect replacement for Koro. I mean, it's big boots to fill, so I'm not saying that he's going to just jump in and score goals like Koro. But the FC Goa side also is very confident that he's been doing the right thing. It's just a matter of starting to score a few more goals. He did score 2 goals against Bangalore, so. Yeah, I think those 2 foreigners have stood out for me. And generally, I like the striker for Northeast United, Apia. He seemed quite nice. He was, running and pressing really hard. And I think the scouting departments of all ISL sides have improved. That's a clear sign here. I think they've no longer brought people who are like unfit or not willing to really chase for the football and really do hard work, and it's good to see 11 players on the field. Sometimes you would have a marquee player who's just strolling and he's not ready to run or he's not ready to work hard for it.
A bit like Marcelino for Orisha last week.
Sorry?
A bit like Marcelino for Orisha last week.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, so there needs to be that. The scouting department is clearly improved. That can be seen. I think in a span, like across all teams, the players have been quite good. I've been a little disappointed with Bangalore. I think we need to talk about Bangalore for sure. We did raise this issue earlier as well about Quadrat and his style of play, playing Ashik as a left back. It seems a little confusing. It seems like Bangalore can only score through set pieces these days, and it's a little worrying for me because that's a team that's a very dominant team. Bangalore was a team that we always looked up to for improving Indian football, and sadly, that's no longer the case right now. It's just like playing a lot of crosses and getting a lot of set pieces somehow scoring through set pieces. So it's a little bit of a concern for me as well.
Yeah, and. But they're going to be there or thereabouts. They've got the quality there, so still early stages. But one thing
it's early stages. But like look at Hyderabad for example. They've got some important points in the first 2 matches, and they've played really good football. So I don't think Bangalore and FC Goa should relax and say, hey, no, we're eventually going to end up top anyway. I think it's not that kind of a season. They'll have to be like really up with their game.
Yeah, and when you look at the table at the moment, it's very early to look at the table, but obviously not if you're a Northeast United fan or a Hyderabad fan. But there's some unusual suspects in the top 4 at the moment. But one thing I have to comment on, and I think I mentioned it last time in the last season about the refereeing. I've been quite impressed with the refereeing so far. I don't know what the perception is in India.
Not so much for I didn't quite like the Kerala Blasters Northeast United match, for example. That was a little poor. And generally the first few matches, but you also see a it's almost like the commentators have been asked to repeat this, because you keep saying, like, for even like average performance from referee, they say, oh, it's been a very good refereeing performance. It seems like sort of reinstating that, referees haven't made any blunder. I mean, that's a bare minimum respect. You don't need to pat on the back for a referee doing the right thing.
No, but some of the calls, considering they haven't got VAR, which we're used to here, and I'll come on to that very quickly, but some of the red card decisions, some of the penalty decisions, they've got them right. You've got to give them a little bit of fair dues.
No, I mean, I'm not saying they've been bad, but I don't necessarily see the need to tell that they've been exceptional, spot on, or anything. They're just doing their job. So, I mean, and it's very early again. Let's see. I'm sure we'll see more drama as we go through the season.
I hope so. I hope so. But some big games, and one starting in 5 minutes, which I'm really looking forward to. I hope Mauritia can get the first win of the season. It's going to be difficult against Jamshedpur. Owen Quill obviously has not had the best starts there. But then your boys, is it a local derby against Chennai? So you'll be interested in that. Looking forward to that?
I mean, they do build it up as a South Indian derby, but we are like split by 700 kilometers. So is that a derby in your place?
Well, not here, but you'll be playing in France here if that's the case. But
yeah, exactly.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, though.
It's called the South Indian Derby, and then there's also a little bit of history from season 1 as well. Abhishek Bachchan, doing the snake dance. Kerala is still coming to win that, and I think since season 1, there's been a bit of a controversy between the two teams. Also because there's a lot of Malayali population in Chennai. There's a lot of Tamil population in Kochi. Similar with Bangalore as well. It's almost like a tri-city is a big word. I mean, that's not the right word to use. But like it's a triangle of rivalry. I think it's just 3 states, 3 important cities.
Yeah.
All trying to be, and strangely Hyderabad doesn't get included. I mean, technically it should be as well. It should be like a 4-way South Indian battle, but right now it's a 3-way thing with I think Kerala Blast is obviously the most noisiest on social media. They've got massive presence everywhere.
The fan base is unbelievable, Kerala Blasters.
But unfortunately, nothing to show. They don't have a trophy. So it's a very interesting chemistry. If Kerala Blasters win something, they'll be very difficult to manage. So the other 2 teams will be hoping that stays an empty cabinet there.
But that is one thing I've learned is never put a fan poll out there, because the Blasters, if they're included, they will win any fan poll against any team in the world. So yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure United will get defeated.
Well, I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to the 2 games today. But then after that, I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to your Chelsea Blues. They are playing their rivals, Tottenham. Although Tottenham might obviously say it's Arsenal. For Chelsea, this is their derby, realistically, because let's forget QPR and the likes of those clubs. But this is a big game, and the talk last week for Tottenham, especially from their fans, was that this could be their season, their title-winning season. They've got the manager who's done it before. He's had a season, but then Frank is not. He's doing it not quietly, but he had a bit of a sticky patch earlier on, even though it's still early. But the players seem to be gelling now and producing. So I'm really looking forward to that game. How do you think it will go? And do you think Tottenham are realistic challengers?
Of course, yeah. Tottenham are good realistic challengers, because Mourinho has got a team that he likes. They're nasty if they have to. They're big. They're athletic. They can defend. They can counter at the speed of light. And yeah, I think Son is arguably, top 10 player in the world right now. I mean, we keep calling him Asia's best player, but I think he's right there amongst the world's best right now in terms of how.
I think so. I agree.
Yeah. And Harry Kane has now developed into this assist-making forward as well. So he's happy to feed Son. They've got the likes of, Lucas Moura, Gareth Bales, Bergwijn. So many good players out there for good attack as well, and good number of bodies behind for a Mourinho kind of defense. So Mourinho can't really have any realistic complaint. He's got a team that he generally likes. Tottenham has gone all out and, got him his targets. I mean, it's very strange for a Daniel Levy team to
Yeah.
spend this week.
Yeah.
But so they've clearly seen something there. Maybe even the Amazon deal, perhaps, but something is working out there for them. And I think strangely, Lampard has gotten better of Mourinho, so he's going to come back with revenge. I'm sure Mourinho has been eyeing, preparing for this match for the last even 2-3 weeks. I mean, I know he's had other encounters, but I'm sure he's been putting extra effort to be ready for this match. So it's a very interesting battle. I think Chelsea are a little more fatigued with the midweek match as well. But Chelsea are also in a good run of form. They've been winning a lot of matches, not conceding a lot of goals. So yeah, interesting. It's a very strange thing to say when I say Thiago Silva could be exposed today, because lack of pace can be exposed today by a team like Tottenham. Because he's been superb so far for Chelsea. You can't, there's nothing he's done wrong so far. But expect Mourinho to, expose the weaknesses in Chelsea. So it's going to be a very difficult match. I, as a Chelsea fan, obviously hope that Chelsea is going to win, because that will really help our cause. I think a lot of people have written off Chelsea as a title contender, but why not this season? Everything is possible this season. So a victory against Tottenham can go a long way in, instilling belief in that young Chelsea side as well. So very, very important match. It's as important as, say, Liverpool versus City, according to me.
Yeah, and couple of things. I think with Mourinho, and you're saying the players he wanted, he got, and a lot of Arsenal players, Arsenal supporters, are saying, how can we be outspent by Daniel Levy when he's just built one of the best stadiums in the world, and we've paid for our stadium. So Arsenal are going the other way at the moment in terms of the fan base. But I think Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has been an incredible signing for Tottenham as a CDM.
Absolutely stunning.
He's made a big difference. But I think Thiago with Kane, I'm not sure who would win that. I don't think Kane's got the most his speed output, but I think if he gets on a 1-to-1 with Son, he might be in a bit of trouble. But I think I fancy your boys today for some unknown reason. I think Mourinho, he's got that defensive play, but with the players that you've got, I think you might just sneak that one. You've certainly got the players to do that, so I'm looking forward to that game immensely. But you mentioned the tough midweek game, and this was the big issue that Klopp had, Jurgen Klopp, and that was an amazing interview he did with BT Sports. I felt for the reporter. That's a tough gig, but obviously they've got a bit of a record, because he did point out, that he wanted a headline. What did you make of that comment, and what do you think about these big clubs? And you support a big club, I don't, in terms of history and the size of wanting 5 substitutes.
I thought it was ridiculous. I lost my shit. I sorry for the language, but there was a WhatsApp group where we discussed a lot of football content, and everybody's like, "Wow, Klopp is right. Klopp is right." I'm like, I don't care if Klopp is right. There is a code of conduct, and you can't pick on some reporter and just let go and completely deny the fact that a lot of teams are eating into the budget that comes from it. You signed up for it as well, so why didn't you think you signed up for the 3 substitute thing as well earlier on? And back then you thought 3 was good enough. Suddenly you want 5, and you have problems with Chris Wilder pointing out that that's an unfair advantage. Klopp talks about changing Robertson and bringing somebody on, and is bringing on somebody who's a starter for a Greek team, while Scott Parker has to replace his left back with somebody who's like 16 years old and has never come anywhere close to a Premier League. So it's not the same. Stop pretending like it's the same for all teams. I agree. There should be 5 substitutes. But
really?
If a team says, I mean, players need some rest, and I don't know what is the solution to it. You could either cut down the number of matches or figure out some other way, expand the season or something. But it is. It's just common sense that players are going to get injured very fast at this rate. There's no denying that. But to jump on a reporter, he's not another manager. If he was going on this attack with, say, Frank Lampard at the other end, I can understand. That's like pure to pure. This is some reporter. Now, the entire Liverpool fan base is going to jump on this reporter. Troll him, God knows, abuse him.
It started.
Pick a fight with somebody on your level. Don't do this to somebody. And he asks very simple questions like, what injuries to Milner. As if the journalists want Milner injured. I mean, what are you trying to imply? It's just Klopp reeking of arrogance, reeking of power. I told my friends he reminded me of Donald Trump. I know he's Liverpool, he's
That's
seemingly
some
progressive, but
comparison.
I mean, that's exactly what he does, what Trump does in most of his press conference. Just bully journalists off. Just not let them talk. Just not let them, put their. I have immense respect for the journalists to, have the guts to point out. It wouldn't have been easy to talk back to Klopp. I have immense respect for him to say, hey, listen, why don't you take it up to people who can actually do something about it? I'm just doing my job here. I've been asked to interview. I ask you very simple questions like, if you want to lose your shit, go lose, with somebody else. I just hated how Klopp handled it. I might agree or might not agree with what he had to say in terms, it's becoming very stressful for players now. But to point out that, Chris Wilder has just 1 point despite having, just 3, it's just lack of class. There is nothing classy attached to it. And I'm sorry when fans, take it up and say, oh, this is how, very cool of Klopp to give it back, whatever. You are in some sense ensuring or like starting a precedent which could be really bad for football, because you don't want journalists getting picked for everything. I was so vocal. Same case when Dhoni lost in a press conference, lost his control in a press conference last time when he called the journalist and made him sit. This is not cool. You're not the same power. You're not calling, say, another captain. You're not asking Aaron Finch to come and sit with you, or somebody like that to come and sit with you. It's just a journalist, and if people don't understand, that we have to do our job, and it's a way of our living, then I'm sorry, this is not working. You're just killing press freedom by doing all this. So for me, it was very infuriating to watch, and more sad to see a lot of people justify. It was like, Klopp is correct. Klopp is doing. What Klopp is correct, Pep is correct, Ole is correct, Frank Lampard is correct. What about the other managers? What about the other teams? What about what they want? I mean, clearly, it's just a talk about they get way more money. Why don't you build a squad for it then? Like you have to play a Champions League. Go get another few players. Why don't you rotate your players? I mean, you've got a big fat squad. Why don't you play other players? No.
This is my point, and I didn't agree with the way he picked on that reporter, and I agree with you. Fair play to the reporter. He stood up for himself. Pointed out the fact that he's having a go at the wrong person. I didn't agree with any of the points. If you want 5 substitutes, make that decision at the start of the season. You've got chief executives that go and talk about all this. Make your views known, and if the majority don't, that's it. Fair play. Majority don't. We live in a democracy of some sort. So, and for him to call out Chris Wilder, I thought that was so out of order. You can't call out a fellow manager in a private meeting. Where I didn't know that. Obviously, information might have come out and I missed it, but I didn't know any managers that were named in terms of not wanting this new change. And the fact that my own club, we've had so many injuries to our first team players and we don't have the biggest squad. But you never heard Leicester fans saying, we want to change to the 5-player rule, or, there's too many games or anything. You just get on with it, bring in the kids and they perform. And these big clubs, it annoys me so much when they've got 25-man squads. They ship out players to play, on loan, left, right and centre, and then they moan about the fixture congestion. Well, I'm sorry, but you've had this fixture congestion. You know about it. If you're successful, you're going to be in these tournaments. So pick and choose the tournaments you want to focus on and rotate your players, but don't come out blaming them. They're happy to take the TV money. What did he want? He says they're playing on Tuesday, so they couldn't play on Sunday, so Saturday was the only time they could play. So that injury could happen at any time if it played at 12:30, 3 o'clock,
yeah, exactly.
or 5:30.
3 hours of recovery is going to make a humongous difference.
In fact,
why did you have to play Robertson in the first place? You had a good quality left back. Why didn't you start him?
Yeah.
Why do you have to play Robertson?
I think this is you're going to see a bit more of this from Klopp, and you saw it from Pep as well. When things are not going well on the pitch, there's other, and in some ways it is a bit Trump-like in the sense that you blame everybody else but yourself, and you pick on the first target, which is the media. And you saw that the big teams, when things don't go their way, they start throwing their toys out of the pram, and I was laughing. I wasn't annoyed. I was just laughing at the interview. I found it really funny. I thought, he's throwing a tantrum here, quite wrongly, and I think he'll regret it afterwards. And I think he did, because he did an interview with BBC afterwards, and you can see a bit of thought had got into that one. But the first one really stood out and showed his true nature.
And we need to stop justifying it. A lot of people justify this, saying, "Oh, it's a heat of the moment." Don't let it go. We need to call this out as it is. It was poor from him. It's uncool to call out another manager going through a hard time and saying, look at him, he got his 3 substitute, but what changes? So as if suggesting that if it was his 5 substitute, things would be better for Chris Wilder. I was just completely unprofessional. I know Klopp fans and Liverpool fans will just that's the world we live, right? We don't really be critical of people who we like. We just follow them blindly. So obviously a lot of people will just say, oh no, he's correct. He was just, raising the valid points. And even if he was, assuming he was in whatever he said was spot. I mean, I'm just assuming it was. Even then, this is not justified. Yeah. Even then, the way he went about it is not justified. Yeah. So,
heat of the moment is when you have somebody that experienced with media. I don't think that really works. Heat of the moment.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think the young, I don't know if he's young, he probably was young compared to me, but fair play to him. I'm glad he stood up and said, you're picking on the wrong person. You're shooting the messenger here. You need to go and speak to your superiors and take it up with the Premier League as to game times. And
it's a simple rule. I think we follow it as writers. I've seen comedians talk about it. You don't punch down. You never punch down. You always punch up. If you want to make a joke, you make about joke that are about the privilege. You don't make joke about somebody who's below you in the social strata. It's a simple thing. Klopp cannot pick on a small reporter. Klopp can pick on, say, Pep Guardiola, for example. That's fine. They're peers in some way. But don't do this to a reporter. There's no way we can justify this.
Yeah. And picking on naming Chris Wilder was absolutely out of order. But I'm glad we've agreed on a lot of things today. So it's gone really quickly as usual. I'm going to run down now and catch my boys win our first game. We're looking forward to it. I think 3 points are really important today.